Welcome back, and thanks for joining us on this edition of Cronkite Sports Now. It's Tuesday, and there's just 2 days left until we feast on food and sports, so let's jump right in. Today on Cronkite Sports Now, how music affects athletes on and off the field. We break down fantasy football picks and stats, and an outcome for the Coyotes we've come to know all too well. These stories and more coming your way on Cronkite Sports Now. Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving week. Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Cronkite Sports Now. I'm Kiana Wallink. Coming off the hottest upset of the season against number 6 Oregon, ASU football is preparing for yet another big game against the team down south in the Territorial Cup. For Herm and his crew, the win against Oregon was much needed after losing 4 straight. And what better way to pick up the pace than potentially ending Oregon's path to the playoffs? Jaden Daniels was named the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week, and Herm Edwards was named the Dodd Trophy Coach of the Week for the 3rd time this year. Now, the Devils are focusing on the hometown rivalry against the Wildcats on what will be the final home game of the 2019 season.
And it's kind of interesting after you played in it once, and I think our players that played in it last year as freshmen understand the importance of this game. There's some chippiness. That's part of it. That's just part of it, as long as it doesn't become a factor in the game. And I think officials realize that, that's just the way the game is played. And I think we got to control our emotions in a game like this. And I know their coach, he's telling their team the same thing. With that being said, there'll still be some chippiness. We get that part.
This is the 93rd meeting of the Sun Devils and the Wildcats as they compete for the oldest college football rivalry trophy. And like Edwards mentioned, the Sun Devils can't let their emotions or records get the best of them headed into this weekend's face-off. Saturday evening's face-off will feature a Sun Devil squad with a better record on paper, holding 6 wins to 5 losses compared to the Wildcats' 4-7 record this season. ASU has historically performed just okay at home, with 22 Territorial Cup wins at home to 18 losses and 1 tie. Kickoff for this year's Thanksgiving rivalry game is set for 8 p.m. So Nick, we often see athletes warming up with earphones in. I'm sure we'll see plenty of that at the game this weekend, but why is music such a huge part of an athlete's preparation?
Yeah, well, just like peanut butter goes with jelly, and you know, it's Thanksgiving week, so mashed potatoes go with gravy. Listening to music is something that all athletes do before a big game, and it's a bigger deal than I think people realize.
Pump-up music, as they like to call it, helps athletes get in the zone before a big game.
Having some songs I like to listen to just get you in the mode, and then once you start feeling your heartbeat and then you get a little bit nervous, that's when I just use it for that. Once you feel that, you know you're ready to play.
But it's not just because of the music. It's because of the amygdala, the part of the brain that stores emotional memories.
When the amygdala is active, it increases our ability to consolidate memories, which means we remember things more strongly. And that's why when we have a really emotional song that maybe before that big game or at your wedding or something like that, and you hear that song, you're sort of triggered emotionally in your brain. Multiple centers are involved in saying, hey, this is a really important event and I have a strong memory of that. And it's because that music was able to sort of engage this area that's really important for making those long-lasting memories.
Those long-lasting memories could be a game-changing play you made or a championship that was won. But when those emotions resurface, an athlete switches into a whole different gear. For one national champion, music is used as a relaxation tool.
I listen to a bunch of different music. I mean, country, rock, rap. Like relaxing throughout the whole tournament. I'll just put it in and lay down and sleep and make sure I get my rest.
But how is the connection of music in the brain observed?
One of them is we do functional MRI scans, which allow typical individuals, like I could go in or anyone could go in, and during MRI scanning, we're looking at changes in blood flow to different parts of the brain. And while that's going on, we have headphones on the participant, and they're listening to different types of melodies. and they're novel. So they've never heard these melodies before. They're just kind of, on the fly, little tunes that we had a concert pianist record.
Amazingly, hearing a memorable song and the reaction of the brain only takes a few seconds.
So our brains are really good at detecting what we call familiar melodies, or familiar songs in this case. So we don't need words, as you know. If you're listening to the radio, you hear first, few neat beats, and you're hooked. So you already have those emotions.
Whether you are a young athlete just beginning or an experienced athlete, when it comes to preparation, that one song can make all the difference. And for Zahid Valencia, that song is
Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That song has been a part of a back-to-back national championship run and a #1 preseason ranking this year. So next time you see an athlete with his headphones in, you'll know that it is not just about the music, but about the memory associated with it.
The brain can do some pretty amazing things, that's for sure, but I never would have thought that a part of the brain was the reason why so many athletes listen to music.
And for this story, I was just able to sit down with a lot of college athletes. It also goes into the professional level and little kid level as well.
Music can take many athletes to a fantasy, but what about fantasy football? Our very own reporter Matt Roy helps us analyze our fantasy picks with playoffs on the rise.
Week 12 of the NFL season has now come and gone, and it's almost the most wonderful time of year again. No, not the holidays. I mean fantasy playoff season, and I'm here to give you a little Cardinals insight. The Cards have had 3 productive running backs this season in David Johnson, Chase Edmonds, and now newcomer Kenyon Drake, but they haven't been all productive at the same time. So who can you trust going forward? Let's take a look. DJ leads all 3 running backs in season-long production with 123 fantasy points in ESPN standard leagues. But the vast majority of those came in weeks 1 through 6, so he's out. Edmonds is last in production between the 3 of them with 82 points, but most of that came between weeks 5 through 7. Besides those weeks, he has just 14.7 points. Edmonds got hurt and hasn't even been on the field since, so he's out too. That leaves Kenyon Drake, who has had the lion's share of the carries since being traded to the Cardinals at the deadline last month, and has averaged over 17 fantasy points a game in that stretch with 52.3 points in just 3 games. He's the one to trust going forward. But the Cardinals have 5 games left this season, and they're all against good defenses who are good against running backs. So if you need to play anybody, play Drake, but be cautious either way. In the studio, I'm Matthew Roy, Cronkite News.
Thanks, Matt. Aside from fantasy, the Cardinals will take the field once again following their bye week against the Los Angeles Rams at home on Sunday. The Coyotes game against the Oilers marked the return of former longtime Coyotes, now Oilers, head coach Dave Tippett to Arizona. But the Coyotes seem to be suffering from the same issues on the ice we've seen all season and were unable to finish off a win over the division-leading Oilers in a defeating 4-3 shootout on Sunday at Gila River Arena.
For some reason, recently, when we're up 1 goal, we tend to let the other team back into it, so it's something we're going to have to clean up.
It's been, too many times that we've kind of lost that third period or lost just that lead going into a period, and it's something we got to change because those are, crucial points and crucial, times. That's especially the third period. So I think that's, kind of the main takeaways. I thought we did okay, and we'll take the point, but obviously got to change that.
The Coyotes remain second in the Pacific Division and will face off against the Anaheim Ducks at home on Wednesday. And just like the Coyotes, after a hot start to the season, the Suns have cooled off and are currently 8-8. Part of the reason for the sudden halt of success comes from a list of injuries. Without Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines and DeAndre Ayton already more than halfway through his suspension, the team is now the 8th seed in the West. The Suns return home after a 2-game road trip and will face the Wizards at Talking Stick Arena on Wednesday. It will be a battle of the guards as top scorers Bradley Beal and Devin Booker face off. That's a wrap on this Tuesday edition of Cronkite Sports Now. For Arizona sports stories from around the Valley, visit the Cronkite Sports tab on arizonasports.com. And as always, for top Arizona news stories, head over to our website at cronkitenews.azpbs.org. And be sure to tune in tonight at 5 p.m. on Arizona PBS for our nightly newscast. On behalf of the entire Cronkite Sports Now crew, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place.